morning, good afternoon, everybody. We've got an audience joining us today around the world, and I'm so happy you're here to join us for our epic Hope for Wildlife series. So my name is Jesse. I am your virtual adventure guide here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And if you're joining us for the very first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and optimism and science into classrooms around the world. So today, we begin a series that has been 4 months in the making in partnership with the amazing team at the IUCN Green Status of Species and the incredible folks at Conservation Optimism. It has been such a thrill and pleasure working with them all to bring you a series featuring solely stories of conservation, hope, and optimism. We are going to talk about species that have come back from the brink, species where active conservation efforts have helped save creatures that might have otherwise gone extinct, and instill you with a ton of inspiration to work on your own projects to help save species locally, globally, and so much more. If you want to check out the entire series, it's at exploringbytheseat.com/wildlife. We've got 7 more programs in the week to come. Before we get underway with our speaker today, I want to note too that we do have a Kahoot for you guys. If you want to dive in with Kahoot.it, enter in that game pin. We'll have a little fun interactive quiz between the talk and the live Q&A. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Grant Humphries, Dr. Grant Humphries, joining us in Edinburgh today. He is the director of the Black Box Data Science team and director of science at Oceanites. And today he is going to walk us through in our inaugural broadcast, our initial one in this amazing series, talking all about hope for penguins, one of my very favorite groups of animals on the planet. And so without further ado, Grant, thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to the broadcast, man.
Oh, hello, everyone. Oh, I just realized my hand disappeared when I put it over to the side. This is what I get for using a virtual background.
This is half the fun. Something should go a little strangely in every video broadcast, especially on Halloween. So I'm glad your hand is disappearing. As long as the head stays there, we're good.
Ghostly.
Yes. I know you've got a lot to share with us today, so if you want to bring up your presentation, go for it.
All right.
And thank you so much for being a part of our program series.
Well, thanks for having me, Jesse. So hang on a second here. We're going to get a bit meta for a second when I share my screen. Share. It's going to look a bit creepy because I can see myself. I'm going to hide that, and then I'm going to bring this up, press the button, and boom. Okay. Now, let's dig right in. Hello, everyone. Perfect. You guys can see this okay, Jesse? I mean, I don't know if anyone is struggling with tech. Great. Perfect. Hope for penguins. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. As Jesse said, my name is Grant Humphries. I am the director of Black Box Data Science and the director of science for Oceanites. I'll talk a little bit about Oceanites maybe later on if we've got a bit of time. It's quite a cool little NGO. We've been working in Antarctica for 30 years, counting penguins. Now, before we kind of blast off and start talking about penguins, which is, of course, my favorite group, I just really want to thank Jesse for the opportunity to chat to you all today. I'd like to thank you all for being here, especially on Halloween, one of the best times of year. And I'd like to thank all the partners for the Hope for Wildlife series. I think this is quite a good opportunity for us to spread a little bit of hope and joy in the middle of a lot of global turmoil right now. I know conservation stories tend to be a bit negative and sad. And what I'm going to hopefully try and do is encourage you all to get involved in some cool penguin projects. So penguins, here we go. I love penguins. They're fantastic animals. Now, interestingly, the word penguin is actually not something that we gave to those black and white birds when we got to Antarctic many years ago. It's actually a Welsh word called, and it's a Welsh word that means white head. So penguin, white head. And this was used by sailors a long time ago to describe a species of bird that's now extinct. This is the great auk, and you can see this statue here is an actual sized statue of a great auk. These were huge birds, flightless, but really dumb. And sailors took advantage of that and ate them all. But however, when sailors got down to Antarctica and they saw these black and white birds that couldn't fly, they realized, oh my God, we can call these penguins as well because they look just like those other birds. Totally different though. Now, penguins are not fish. They are not mammals. Sailors many moons ago, the first time they saw penguins, questioned this. Penguins are, in fact, birds. It's just that they don't fly through the air. They fly through water. Now, so when we hear people say that penguins are flightless, what we really mean is that they don't fly through the air. But if you've ever seen videos of penguins going through the water, they do look like they're flying. They use their wings to flap through the water. So they aren't necessarily flightless. They don't fly through the air. They've got these really cool torpedo-shaped bodies. I mean, they almost look like really slim rugby balls for those of you who play rugby or American football. And so it makes them very hydrodynamic, so they can fly through the water really rapidly. They've also got these really small, shiny feathers, and those feathers are really, really useful for keeping them warm and for keeping them hydrodynamic. Because you can imagine being a bird with big feathers, there'd be a lot of drag, so it means that it wouldn't go through the water so quickly. In fact, penguins have the most dense amount of feathers compared to any other species of bird. So huge numbers of feathers per square inch. They've got these large webbed feet, and they're not just good for waddling around awkwardly on land, but they're really, really good for kicking their way through the water. A Gen 2 penguin, for example, can swim something like 22 miles an hour, which is, yeah, I mean, you can imagine a car driving 22 miles an hour, and imagine you trying to swim 22 miles an hour. A lot of them have stiff tail feathers, and that's to help them stand upright and kind of water the way up through from the water up onto the rocks. And they're also all counter shaded. You'll probably have all seen that every species of penguin almost looks the same. They're black and white. And the reason for this, scientists believe, is to allow them to avoid being predated. So if you imagine being a penguin up near the surface and you've got a predator underwater like that, it looks up, but all it sees is white sky and a white belly. So it doesn't know that it's actually an animal. And the same thing the other way around. If you're a predator going over the top and it's down low where all it can see is dark, well, all it's going to see is black. So that's the theory behind that. Now, there are 5 kind of large groups of penguins of the 18 species. There's the Aptenidites. These are the emperor and king penguins. These are the big guys. Emperor penguins you might recognize from Happy Feet, for those of you who've seen it. We've got the Pygoscelid penguins. So these are the stiff-tailed or the brush-tailed penguins. You see Adelie penguins nest only in Antarctica. We've got the Megadites, and these guys here consist of a single species, yellow-eyed penguin, which you can only find in New Zealand. We've got the Spheniscus penguins, and there's a few species here. These are the more, I won't say tropical, but subtropical species, and these ones live in temperate regions like Africa, South America, the Galapagos Islands. You can see they're all have evolved from a similar ancestor. And we've also got the Eudiptes, and these guys here are the ones that you might recognize as like the macaroni penguins, right, with the big fluttery eyebrows. Now, this might seem like a silly question to some people. Where do penguins live? And you'd be surprised at how many people have asked me this, especially going to Antarctica. They'll ask, when are we going to see polar bears? Well, we will never see polar bears and penguins together. If you do, you're in a zoo. Or if you're in the wild and you see a penguin and a polar bear together, you better hope that the penguin can run fast. Penguins are almost entirely in the southern hemisphere. You can see there's the Galapagos penguins, which are basically right on the equator, so they can kind of skip over a little bit. But broadly speaking, they're all in the southern hemisphere, and polar bears are only in the Arctic. So they never, ever cross. Now, a long time ago, there's a story of some people who tried to introduce penguins to the Arctic. They tried, and the penguins were never seen again. So who knows what happened there. Why are penguins in danger? Now, you guys must see this all the time. You'll see it on Facebook and Twitter and social media and in the news, and you'll see, penguins are dying everywhere and all this sort of stuff. It's very sad, but why? Why are penguins in danger? Well, the first is climate change. I mean, we all know that's kind of the big one, isn't it? Another reason that penguins are in danger is because of human consumption. So yes, penguins are eaten illegally in some places. Usually it's their eggs, but historically, certainly in places like South Georgia, penguins were eaten by humans because they had nothing else to eat other than seals. Predators, so introduced predators like cats, rats, even these things will take penguins. In places like New Zealand and Australia, you have problems with dogs. So people's pet dogs, they go off the lead, and they can take penguins. And oil spills is obviously another big one. South Africa, this has been a particularly large problem. And then overfishing. And you guys might be familiar with a lot of these already if you've been doing any of this kind of stuff in your classes or paying attention to all that negative news on social media. Well, I don't have all the time in the world to talk to you about all the penguins. There's 18 species, and they've all got their own problems, and they've all got their own success stories. I'm going to focus on 4 species, and I'm going to focus on the 4 species that I feel are going to give you the best sense of hope. There are others, of course, but these are some of my favorite species. The first is the king penguin. King penguins are quite tall; they're about a meter high, so that's 100 centimeters. About 3 feet high for those of you in the United States, and they're big animals. And they, if you were a small person, you'd be quite frightened being around these guys. They're quite cool because they nest all across the sort of like sub-Antarctic regions. So in islands like the Falklands, down in Patagonia in South America, South Georgia, across to Crozet and Kerguelen Islands in the southern Indian Ocean, and Macquarie Island in the South Pacific Ocean, south of New Zealand. We think there's about 2 million individuals globally. So it's quite a lot, and their populations have increased. This is kind of an example of a large penguin colony. These are, I don't know if you've got your sound on, but if you might be able to hear these guys calling. This is in South Georgia. This is a place called St. Andrews Bay. This is about 150,000 individuals. And you can see those brown specks in here, these brown splotches, and that's the big fluffy brown chicks that they have. Now, these birds are recovering from human persecution. So a long time ago, back when people were whaling down in the southern hemisphere, whalers were using the king penguins, using the fat on the king penguins for things like lamp oil and that sort of stuff. And they were also eating them. Not very tasty, I can guarantee. They're probably quite fishy and very strong, so don't recommend ever eating them. But since that stopped, since whaling was banned, and since the whalers came home, and since we started putting conservation measures in place to prevent tourists from, because there are tourists who go to places like South Georgia, preventing tourists from interacting too much with the penguins, we've seen huge population increases. And this is a figure from a paper by a colleague of mine, Katie Foley, where she's been counting the penguins in South Georgia for several years using drones and the like. And she put together some old resources, looked back at historical data, and found that, in fact, we are seeing a really marked increase in the number of king penguins in places around South Georgia, which is really great news for these birds. There are other threats that are still exist, but they're very hardy birds. These birds are really cool because they have this thing where they just kind of constantly breed. They don't really leave the site like other species do. So on to the next species, little blue penguins. These are the smallest of all the penguins. You can see they're a little bit different too. They're actually got a blue color rather than a black color on their back. And these guys have a very different ecology than most other penguin species. And what I really like about these guys, and for anyone who's ever been to New Zealand or ever planning to go to New Zealand or South Australia, I highly recommend going to see the little blue penguins coming into shore, because it is amazing. What they do is they come in at nighttime, right about dusk, and they come back to the colony in like a wave. You see them come in on like literally as waves of animals. You see 20, 30 of them all at the same time. They rush the beach, they pop out of the water, and they hit the sand, and they all shake themselves off, and they kind of rush the beach like in D-Day or something like that, and literally running up the beach like a whole pile of soldiers, and then march themselves off into their burrows. Now, these guys are a species of least concern. They have a stable population globally, and their biggest threat, and so you can see here, this is actually their distribution. You see South Australia, and then around New Zealand, it's about 470,000 animals, we think. But their biggest threat is actually dogs and that sort of stuff. So because these animals interact with us, people, quite frequently, we're the biggest threat. So they'll come ashore in places like Wellington, New Zealand, which is a city, or just south of Melbourne, Australia, which is a huge city. You see them around Hobart and Perth, Australia. They just come up on the beaches, and they have little burrows, like holes in the ground, and they find their way down in there, and that's where they nest. But of course, that means because they're around people, then they're exposed to things like cats and dogs in particular. So people who are walking down the beach with their dogs off the lead, um, and that sort of stuff. However, people have been really aware of that, and because it's a really easy thing to deal with, people have been doing a really good job at protecting these animals, particularly along, say, like the west coast of New Zealand. There's the West Coast Penguin Trust, and they've done a very good job of educating people and telling people keep your dogs on your lead. But there's a really cool story that I want to share with you. And this is kind of a cool example of how conservationists really beat industry. One of my favorite things. And so this is in Australia, just south of Melbourne. This is a place called Phillip Island. And what happened was basically, historically, through the 1700s and the like, this was being used by the Aborigines to harvest a species of shearwater, as another species of seabird. And there are penguins that nest here as well. And then over time, people realized that, oh, actually, this is a good piece of land to develop because it's in a really beautiful place. It's relatively protected. So they decided they were going to build a golf course there. So this is sort of like in the late 1800s into the early 1900s. They started building infrastructure for a golf course. They started putting in houses, roads, and all this sort of stuff. Then in through the 1930s, they started realizing, like, oh, there's penguins here and they're getting in the way of things. But people really like penguins. Even back then, people really liked penguins. They thought they were adorable and cute and interesting. So the people who owned the land started bringing tourists. And when that happened, they realized that there was a real need to preserve these animals. So over time, conservationists started purchasing that land back. And eventually, what happened was the land was completely cleared of all housing, all infrastructure, and any infrastructure that's there today, so anything that's left behind now, is there solely for the penguins. So this is a case where the penguins fought back, and now the island belongs to the animals. There is a center there, so an education center, and you can go and sit and watch the penguins come ashore in these nice little safe sort of like sitting platforms. It's a really, really cool experience. If anyone goes to Australia, or if anyone here is from Australia who might be watching sometime, please do go check out Phillip Island Nature Reserve, because this place it's so cool. And they do have a little penguin countdown on the website, so if you want to know when the penguins are coming ashore, you can see the little countdown. They've got it down to an art. So the next species I wanted to talk to you about were the African penguins. Now these ones here are the ones you probably see in the zoo most frequently. Unfortunately, their population status is decreasing, but this is a species that can really benefit from active management. And as you can imagine, being called the African penguin, they nest in Africa, particularly and primarily around South Africa, but there are colonies all up through Namibia and Mozambique. And there's only about 42,000 individuals left, so not a big population, but heavily visited by tourists who visit places like Cape Town. There's a famous beach called Boulder Beach, for those of you who may have been to South Africa. And you can basically almost walk right up to the penguins. You can certainly see them there. Like I mentioned before, one of the biggest threats is oil spills. And because it's near people, of course, there's animals, predators, and that sort of stuff. But what we found is that active management, so in other words, hand rearing chicks, so chicks that get stranded or anything like that, is a really, really good way of protecting these animals. They take really well to it, and this is why they do well in zoos, is because they're very susceptible to recovery after being raised by people, and then they go back into the wild. And this has led to about 7,000 fledglings returning back to the wild. So 7,000 of 42,000 is actually a really, really significant chunk. So this is a species that has a lot of active management that's being done on them right now, and there's a lot of potential for them to come back. So through active management and other cool conservation measures, we can make a big difference with this species. Now, Chinstrap penguins, again, another very, very cool species. These are a few very poopy looking ones. These ones were a picture that I took on one of my first trips to Antarctica some time ago, and they're looking very sleepy and calm there. Now, unfortunately, again, their population is decreasing. However, these are quite a cool one because they're probably one of the most populous species. That means there's almost more of these than almost any other penguins. The only other penguins that have more individuals are the macaroni penguins. So this one here is about 8 million individuals worldwide. So that's, you can imagine, a city of 8 million people. Imagine that spread out throughout the southern hemisphere, and it's all penguins. They nest mostly on these sort of the same kind of islands that you find king penguins. So places like South Georgia, the Falkland Islands to a limited degree, all through the Antarctic Peninsula. You see them right up through the Antarctic Peninsula, which is that kind of little spit of land down here. I don't know if you can actually see my mouse, but if you can, there I'm pointing to the Antarctic Peninsula. But the biggest colonies are down in this little point of land, these little dots of land right along here. These are the South Sandwich Islands, and they're all volcanic. So they're all volcanoes. So Chinstrap penguins, for whatever reason, love nesting on volcanoes. Now here's a picture that I nabbed off the web, so I couldn't find a source for it, so I apologize to whoever took this picture. But you can see here millions and millions and millions and millions of birds, huge numbers of them, and they're nesting right under this big active volcano. Now, I'm sure that there are some of you out there who've seen the Octonauts movie, The Ring of Fire. If you have, then that's this. This is the island where they go to rescue the Chinstrap penguins, Zavodovsky Island, which is on the South Sandwich Islands here. This is that. You can't see it on this map, but it is a little point. Now, Chinstrap penguins are declining primarily because of climate change. At least that's what we think. In Antarctica and in the southern polar regions, there aren't really many people. So there's not a whole lot of direct human influence down there. So that means that the things that are affecting populations in these remote areas have to be something bigger and less obvious. And so that's why scientists really believe that climate change is the key driver for population change for Chinstrap penguins. Now, that might not fill you with a lot of hope. However, what you need to remember as concerned citizens is that things that you do at home around your investments, for those of you who are old enough to invest in things, investments and your actions, whether they be small or big, have an influence on climate change. We can make decisions that have positive effects on our global ecosystem, and that's the kind of approach that we need to take as people to make differences in these populations. Now, Chinstrap penguins are quite lucky because there's so many of them. It makes them really resilient to changes. It gives us time to be able to make changes that will help their population. Because if for whatever reason one small population disappears, there's still lots more there to kind of take up the mantle, and we can do that through, say, active breeding programs or translocation programs and that sort of stuff that we might be able to use to help bolster them if things get bad enough that their populations really start to get hit. So having a big population is a very good thing. It means lots of diversity and lots of animals to sort of like buffer against these effects of climate change. And you can see here, these are moderately depleted, but we don't really know a whole lot about them because there's so many of them. So that's why we can only estimate there's about 8 million of them. So I'm just going to quickly talk about other Antarctic penguins. You might see these beautiful little Adelie penguins marching along past my camera. Some of you might even spot the funny Gentoo walking along here. Now, in Antarctica, there are 5 species of penguins that breed. We've got Adelies, Chinstrap, Gentoo, Emperor, and Macaroni penguin. But Macaroni penguin only nest in sort of one little spot. The big ones are the Adelies, Chinstrap, Gentoo, and Emperor penguins. And we're doing quite a lot in Antarctica to try and monitor and make sense of what's going on down there. So I have some colleagues at Stony Brook University, Dr. Heather Lynch, who's been really heavily involved with using satellites to detect penguins. And they can do that by quite literally looking at penguin poop. And you can see penguin poop from space. And I'll show you an example of that. And in fact, you can help at home by going on Google Earth and looking for penguin poop in Antarctica. I'll show you how that works. Basically, because we've got these satellites, we've got good imagery for Antarctica. It means we can sort of figure out, where these birds are. We can estimate how big colonies are. We've also got drones now, cheap and accessible drones that are easy to fly and give us really, really good high quality imagery. And that's what we're flying in Antarctica right now. So we've got friends and colleagues who are down in Antarctica flying drones over colonies right now that we can use for counting penguins in real time. And so here's an example. This is literally pulled right from Google Earth. So you could go onto Google Earth right now and find this image if you wanted to. So this is a place called Port Lockroy, which is a post office. It's the world's most southern post office on Goudier Island. And you can see these little patches in yellow that I've highlighted here. These are actual penguins. If you look really closely, you can see little dots, and you could almost count them from this image. And this is a satellite. The sort of like pinkish stain right here, that's penguin poop. And so that's how you find penguin colonies in satellite imagery. Is you look for these pinkish stains and these little black dots scattered in between them. That's a penguin colony. So you feel like playing around on Google Earth, please go for it and let us know. You can go to penguinmap.com and there's a little link in there that you can click on how to be a penguin detective. So with that, I'll love you and leave you with this beautiful little footage here of a Gentoo penguin and its baby. This is on Cooverville Island, and there's that ship in the background is a ship that we use to get to Antarctica. So there we go. And I'm happy to start getting into some questions.
Well, first and foremost, Grant, I'll say a huge thank you for that beautiful presentation. What a gorgeous spot to leave us off on. And I want to note, too, you mentioned Heather Lynch. We're going to have her on in December. So if people want to learn even more about penguins, we've got lots on the go. I'll make sure that you guys get all the resources to do that after the broadcast today. But as you come out of screen share, what I'm going to do for our audience, both live and on YouTube, is get us ready with our Kahoot. So we're going to ask you guys a bunch of questions first, and then we're going to take your questions for Grant over the next 10 minutes or so. So I'm going to pull this up for everybody. For those who are new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get. Now, you don't win anything, but you do win Grant and I's everlasting respect for having paid epic attention to his broadcast. So we're going to get underway in just a second, give you guys a few more shakes of a dog's tail to join us in. While we're waiting for some folks too, I'll note that this whole program series is made possible by the amazing folks at Nature for All, an amazing organization sort of encompassing a lot of world's best conservation and nature education groups. And I will make sure everyone gets our black box thing, our Oceanites.org, our penguinmap.com. We got all the links for you guys today. And Grant, I absolutely love the Australian penguin thing where you can see in 17 hours and 28 minutes the penguins are coming in. It's one of the
penguin
greatest
countdown
things I've ever found on the web. So thank you for that. Let's do this thing and get underway. And Grant, when there's 5 seconds to go in each of these, if you want to give us little hints, you're welcome to chime in. But let's start with our first question. Here we go. Our Halloween background. I'm excited. Spooky today. Whoa. How many kinds of penguins are there? This is explicitly mentioned in the broadcast. Is it 2 kinds of penguin? Is it 18, 50, or are there like 450 penguins? There's a penguin on every street corner. What do we think?
I'd like a penguin on every street corner personally.
That's what we're hoping for. Positive conservation.
Guarantee you it's more than 2. It's more than two for sure.
Yeah, we had 5 in like the one thing. Almost all of you got this right. That's like one of the highest percentages ever.
Nice, wow, well done, everyone. People were paying attention.
That's always a good sign. It's very comforting when the kids pay attention.
Yeah.
Silver Ants in our lead. Let's go to question 2. And if you are any of these folks by the end, let us know who you are in the chat before we go to your Q&A. Penguins and polar bears hang out. True or false? This is a fundamental part of the talk, and it's one of my favorite things to highlight in every penguin presentation, so I hope you guys all are paying attention for this.
Yeah.
Those commercials are wrong. Not, like 80% of you got this right, 90%, 65 said false. That is correct. Polar bears in the north, penguins in the south. Silver ant maintains the lead, but green wolf is right there.
Ooh, coming up.
I kind of want someone with a penguin name to win because it's auto-generated, so we're going to hope for a penguin winner today.
I'd be curious if there's any penguins in there.
Yeah. So this
Here
is
we
a
go.
multi-select, which means you get to pick more than one. Penguins live in which of these countries? Pick whichever ones are applicable. Argentina,
Good.
Ecuador, South Africa, New Zealand. Ooh, we're stumping people with this one.
Oh, that's a good one. I'd
Ooh.
be curious. I was curious to see if everyone gets these.
Now, we didn't address all of these, I don't think, live in the broadcast, but you did have
We
maps
didn't. The
that
maps were
overlaid.
there. They were, yeah.
All right, 0 seconds. It was all of them. So all
All
four
of
of
them.
these countries have penguins, but
Yep.
New Zealand and South Africa, you really did inspire people with those. That's good.
Yeah.
Perfect. All
Slam
right.
that into their heads.
Dr. Cat takes the lead. Oh, so we're changing up our leaderboard here. One more question, folks, and then we're going to you guys for your questions. So some penguins are increasing in population, true or false? And maybe this
Everyone
picture's a hint.
Yeah, I think
Spoiler. This is a
everyone
really
should know.
Grant, I just so you know, like the fastest people get their answers in for any Kahoot I think I've ever had. So you guys were like really,
Wow.
you're
Everyone's really clued in. Yeah.
All right, 71 answers. True. There are penguins
Hey.
that are increasing. We're doing a great job with some penguins. We had some great conservation stories today. So let's see our podium, and then we're going to go to Miss McTiernan's class for our first question in just a second. So Miss McTiernan's group joining us in Harrison. Welcome in. Let's
Baron,
see.
who wins?
A winner. Dr.
Dr.
Cat.
Cat.
It's not a penguin, but that's okay.
No.
We'll accept you as our champion today.
Well done, Dr. Cat.
Grant, let's head to Miss McTiernan's group. Come on in, guys, and take us away. Hey.
Okay, go ahead. What was the first known penguin?
What was the first?
Penguin.
Yeah,
The first
one we ever found. Was there a first penguin we discovered?
That's a good. That's probably it's a good question. I would say the first penguin that humans would have interacted with was probably either the African penguin or the Humboldt penguin, because people have been living in South America and Africa for a very, very long time. But hard to say for sure. If you were talking about evolutionarily from an long time ago, and penguins have been around for about 60 million years, by the way. So these are one of the oldest groups of birds. There was a penguin that was about 2 meters high and had a bill that was about that long and really pointy. So
I'm so glad we got him in. And what an interesting question to sort of stump the scientist to begin the process. But I guess South Africa would be the most likely, given where we evolved, which is interesting that so few people think Africa and penguins nowadays. So I like that.
That's it. Yeah, that's for sure.
Miss Swangster's class, Jerusalem Elementary, joining us in Ohio. If you guys want to come on in, you are good to go. Just unmute that mic. Hey, guys. Oh, why do penguins like nesting on top of volcanoes? Good question. Really good question.
That's a good question. Now, so they fortunately don't nest on top of volcanoes, because that would be very bad. But they do nest around the edges of volcanoes or on volcanic islands. And there's only really the Chinstrap penguins that do this. There's not really a good scientific reason for it. It is a bit warmer there, but to be honest, the landscape is fine for most penguins to breed on. It is a bit warmer, and Chinstrap penguins tend to like a little bit warmer climates. A lot of it has to do with kind of luck. These are where the birds ended up being over time, So these there's not really a biological reason for it. They didn't say like, oh, this is a lovely looking volcano. It's very warm and toasty here. I think I'm going to set up. It's just that few birds ended up there and then more birds followed.
Yep. Great question, guys. All right, I'm going to head to Ms. O'Grady's next live, but I'll take one from YouTube from Mr. Shattuck's class. By the way, Tristan came in second in the Kahoot, so way to go, Tristan, in Mr. Shattuck's class. Great questions. Emily wants to know, do penguins use their feet to help with swimming, and how?
Yes, they do. They do use their feet for swimming. They go like this. And it's a shame. I may have had, I did have a video, but I've since. Oh, actually, hang on a second. Can I share my screen for a second? Is that all right?
Bring it back up. Go for it, man.
Let me do this for you, because I do have a video of penguins swimming that I can share. Here we go. And let me pull this guy up. So if you guys can see this, there we go. I'll share this, and you can see somewhere. Hopefully, it'll probably be a little bit jumpy, and I apologize for that, but it should give you an idea of what they're doing underwater here.
They're just like these, they're so fast, it's ridiculous. They just blow by fast.
But you see what they're doing here. So they use their feet like rudders underwater. So a lot of the action of them actually swimming is actually more their wings. So they're actually flying through the water. And I apologize, and you see them there just using them.
Great.
So they're kind of like little underwater rudders. There we go.
Spectacular. Thank you for that.
Good question. Good question. Oh, let me stop sharing.
There we go. You come back in with that. You're all good to go. I'm going to head to Miss O'Grady's class. If you guys want to come on in and unmute your mic, you're good to go. Hey, spooktacular folks.
Hi. Do you have a favorite type of penguin?
Ooh, no pressure.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I would say it's a very close tie between king penguins and royal penguins. So royal penguins you can only find in Macquarie Island, down south of Australia and New Zealand, South Pacific. King penguins, of course, and you saw my video. They I have a very good relationship with king penguins. I think they're beautiful. I love their feathers. Those gray feathers are just amazing, and there's such a cool breeding cycle. And their chicks, if you ever get a chance, go to Google and look for king penguin chicks. They're big, like barrels. In fact, they're called oakum barrels. They're big, fluffy brown things. They're amazing.
They are amazing. I'll make sure our classes get that link just to make sure they check that out when they're done the broadcast. But it's very rare, by the way, to have a biologist that actually has a favorite animal. So thank you for taking a firm stand in our wildlife.
I very firmly enjoy both of those species of penguin.
We're going to head to Miss Edie's Global Explorers, our grade 5s in Asheville, North Carolina. I know you guys are just in this audio class, but if you want to unmute your mic, you should be good to go. Let's see. Miss Edie's class came in a second after we got underway. I can't wait for you guys till you unmute your mic. And you know what? I'll take a quick YouTube question while you're doing that. So Fallon, joining us in Lloydminster, Alberta, they want to know how many penguins are left in the wild total, I suppose.
Oh, geez, that's a question that I think we're all still trying to grasp. You know, you're talking in the order of 25, 30 million, maybe less, maybe more. We know that there are a lot of macaroni penguins, and that's the kind of big unknown. We know there are a lot of them, but we don't know how many of them. There was a paper in sort of the mid-2000s that kind of looked at this and tried to make an estimate, but it's really difficult because macaroni penguins, they breed in tall grass and in in burrows, and they're really, really hard to count. So, lots,
Millions.
definitely in the tens of millions.
Which, by the way, so I want to stress for our classes that might not have this as a frame of reference. I think when we're used to thinking about populations, we think people and 8 billion, which is absurd by global standards. When you have 2 to 8 million of anything, that's actually a really, really high population. That's one of the more common kinds of, certainly a largish animal on the planet. So it's really good news for some of those penguin species, which is exciting. Great question, Fallon. Miss McTiernan's class, we're going to go back to you guys live. Miss Edie, if you do want to unmute your mic, I can come to you in a minute, but we'll head back for our first group to say hello again. Hi, guys.
All right.
What does penguin mean in Latin?
What does penguin? Well, penguin isn't a Latin name, so penguin is a Welsh. It's a Welsh word, so it comes from Wales in the UK. Penguin means white head. There are a whole lot of different Latin names for penguins, so Aptenidites and that sort of stuff. Spheniscus. These are the genus names.
I have a follow-up on this. First of all, that is the first and only question we've ever had in 1,200 broadcasts that someone asked about Latin origins or something. So thank you for that very much. Ever. That has never happened. And secondly, how interesting that penguins, I mean, you mentioned this at the top of your broadcast, but get their name from a Welsh word. Are there any other species that have a Welsh origin for the name? Because I've never heard of such a thing. It's interesting as that.
It's a good question. I'm actually not 100% sure. I know that the reason why it was given a Welsh name was because these were the sailors who were coming across to Newfoundland from the old world, where they were coming across the Great Auk Islands, and they were predominantly English, Welsh, Irish, and that sort of stuff. So it would have been some Welsh sailor somewhere along the way said, "Oh, penguin, white head."
Some hero.
It just stuck.
Yeah. Awesome, Grant. Let's head back to Jerusalem Elementary, Miss Swankstu's class. We're going to take a few more questions. Time flies and you're having fun, folks. So we'll make sure you have lots of resources when this program is done. But Jerusalem Elementary, come on back in. Hey.
You want to read it, Kessel?
What do emperor penguins eat and why?
What do emperor penguins eat and why? That is a really good question. Emperor penguins eat all sorts of little bits and bobs, basically almost anything that they can fit in their mouth, but primarily things like small fish. So these fish called myctophids. They eat squid. Krill is another big one. So those of you who are familiar with what Antarctic krill are. But emperor penguins are really, really cool for a whole pile of reasons. Some of you may have seen March of the Penguins, and you know that they go away for really long periods of time, walking out to sea and all this. But what's really amazing about them is that they can dive down to about 500 meters in depth. So that's half a kilometer. So the average person walks about 6 kilometers an hour, maybe something like that. So if you were to walk for 12 minutes in a straight line and not stop, that's how deep a penguin can dive, and an emperor penguin can dive, and it can hold its breath for something like 30 minutes. And so they can get really, really deep and get into all sorts of cool stuff, fish and the like that live at depth.
I'm so glad you mentioned March of the Penguins. If students haven't seen that, Frozen Planet is an amazing BBC series and book. Frozen Planet 2 just came out as well. Penguins are a very, very well-studied group of creatures, all things considered, and that's really sort of permeated the popular consciousness. So lots of resources out there for them, including some that we'll share at the end of our broadcast. But Madame O'Grady, if you guys want to come in for one final question, unmute your mic, and we'll go to you for our last query. Hi, guys. Welcome in. Hello.
Hi, Olivia's going to ask a question.
Come on up, Olivia.
Slash Snow White. Snow White.
Oh, Snow White.
Snow White.
Great costume.
Where are the 7 dwarves?
Yeah.
We got lots.
Hi.
Which kind of penguin has the most population in Antarctica?
Yeah.
So the biggest population of penguins in Antarctica is the Adelie penguin. So there are about 4.5 million birds in Antarctica. So that's Adelie penguins. Most of them are actually south of the Antarctic Circle.
Wow.
And so they also nest on the Antarctic Peninsula, but you'll see them down south of the Antarctic Circle almost predominantly, and there's huge colonies down there. But Adelie penguins be the most populous in Antarctica.
And for people, just as a reminder, that's the one that Grant had the camera set up where they're all walking by. And I must admit, they're my favorite penguin. I like the big ones like King and Emperor because they're huge and they're glorious. They do have crazy, awesome babies. But Adelie penguins look like they have a cooler, I don't know. I like the little spot, and they're just such a fantastic and charismatic creature.
Yeah, now before you end up really quick there, Jesse, just say there was a question from Mrs. McTiernan who's asked, someone named Jace has asked, are penguins aggressive? And the answer is yes. And there is a YouTube video, if you go to my YouTube channel, of me getting attacked by a king penguin. So they are aggressive.
And any lasting wounds from this? Are you missing an arm or
No, but I'm sure that if I didn't have my GoPro, they would have found me in 10,000 years in the middle of that penguin colony, having been pecked to pieces by a group of king penguins.
What a beautiful way to end our first Hopeful Wildlife story. I love it. Grant, this has been so much fun. I'm going to ask you one final question in a minute, but I do want to note just for our classes, Conservation Optimism is our main partner for this incredible series. They've got an awesome slew of resources at their Kids Corner. I'll make sure all our registered classes have this. We, of course, also partner with the IUCN Green Status of Species and Nature for All as an agglomeration of all these amazing groups is what made this possible. I'll make sure you guys have all the incredible links to programs that Grant is involved with at the end of the program. So do get ready for those in your inbox in just a minute. And before we wrap up and get all our classes to say a big thank you and farewell, Grant, is there a final message you want to leave with us about penguins and the research on them?
So penguins are the coolest birds for a whole pile of reasons, evolutionarily, and they're just beautiful looking birds, right? I mean, absolutely amazing. And what's cool is because in Antarctica we don't have a lot of influence in Antarctica. Like, we're not there all the time, right? So what we can see down there is this really beautiful natural experiment where we can see changes in population, and we can eliminate a lot of the human elements really easily. But as we're going forward, there are lots of things that we can do. We can get involved in local conservation groups. If you're ever in places where there are penguins, Australia, New Zealand, that sort of stuff, please do go and get involved and see them in the wild, because they are amazing, amazing animals. And the changes that you make in your daily lives that can impact climate change is going to have a huge impact globally on penguin populations. So please do bear that in mind as you're continuing on your journey in life, and keep in mind our black and white feathered friends.
Outstanding. And I always love this message of don't waste and of think of yourself as being a part of a global impact. It really is more true than ever. If you're in Saskatchewan, if you're in Chile, if you're in Adelaide, the things you do every day impact penguins, they impact tigers, they impact all our species in our Hope for Wildlife program. And so I'm so glad to have had you here today to talk about these incredible feathered friends to kick us off. And Grant, to wrap up, what we do to end every broadcast, I'm going to bring in all our teacher friends to say a big thank you and farewell for this awesome presentation today. So Miss McTiernan, Jerusalem Elementary, Madame O'Grady, welcome in, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. And have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye for now, guys.
Thanks, everyone.